Hey everyone, welcome back to Noiseberry Wrestling. It is the end of another year, which means it's time for me to talk about some of my favorite matches from this year. Before we get started, just want to apologize for missing the last, I think, 2 AEW pay-per-view predictions. Just at the last one, I was actually house sitting for my sister at the time, so I literally was unable to record and edit a video for it. The previous one, I think I was just dead tired from work and just did not get around to it. But hopefully by the time this video goes out, I will have done predictions for AEW World's End. So hopefully you watched that and enjoyed it, and hopefully I did it. Normally I do a top 5 matches of the year. This year, I felt like I've watched a bit less wrestling than usual, and I definitely watched less varied wrestling. At the start of the year, I still watched a little bit of Noah, a little bit of New Japan, WWE pay-per-views, and I think probably between February and the G1 in August, I didn't watch any New Japan, and after the G1, I didn't watch any more New Japan either. Noah, I don't think I watched since January. I even missed a few WWE pay-per-views this year, which I never normally do. This year I just ended up skipping Crown Jewel, because Crown Jewel, who cares? Whatever the Saturday night main event thing that happened recently, didn't bother watching that one. So I think instead of doing a top 5 list this year, I'm just going to go through the list of my favorite matches and just talk about each one of them as they come up. And so I don't know if I'm going to do this kind of list next year, because yeah, I'm really just watching AEW at this point, and I don't think it's really worthwhile doing a top 5 list if it's just going to be 5 AEW matches, because I'm literally not watching anything else. So we'll see. This video might not happen next year, but I'm still going to aim to do my prediction videos just for AEW pay-per-views. Maybe nothing else. I don't know if there'll be any New Japan ones next year. Unlikely. So yeah, no top 5 list this year, but I'm just going to go through my little list that I've got here, which I think is a little bit shorter than most years as well. Another reason I didn't really want to do the official top 5. First match I've got listed is Kenoh versus Manabu Soya from Noah the New Year on January 2nd. I'm recording this video on December 21st, literally almost a full year since that match. I don't remember a single thing about it. Obviously I liked it enough to put it on my list in January, but yeah, I do not remember this match at all, and that's another reason why I'm not entirely sure I want to do top 5s wrestling matches going forward, because I'm sure as impactful as some of the earlier matches in the year were, unless they're incredibly special, like Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay last year, they don't stick in my mind enough for me to remember anything about them when it comes to making the list. In a similar vein, my next match was Kenoh versus Shiozaki from Noah Star Navigation January 13th. Again, I don't remember anything about this match. I know Kenoh's great, I know Shiozaki's great, and Soya's great as well from the previous match. So I'm sure these were great matches, and I think it does take a pretty solid Noah match for me to get it to add it to my list, because I don't love the Noah style for the most part. Obviously these 2 matches were great. Next we have a match that I do remember very well, and I think probably if I was doing like the top 5, this might have been my match of the year, was United Empire versus Bullet Club War Dogs in the cage match from New Japan Pro Wrestling New Beginning. This was the incredibly violent, quite dangerous, very, very long, big cage match. You don't get cage matches in Japan at all, pretty much. This was Ospreay's last match in New Japan. It was his big farewell match. It was crazy, it was bloody, it was violent. There were quite a few injuries coming out of it, but it was a great match. Next match on my list was Will Ospreay. You're gonna see this name a lot. Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita from AEW Revolution. I don't remember the particulars of this match too well, but I do remember watching this match on vacation. I went to visit my parents in Surprise, Arizona, and I believe this pay-per-view was happening on the day I flew in to see them. And so I just kind of caught up on the pay-per-view over the week while I was there, just kind of like at night when everybody else had gone to bed. I would just stay up and catch up on this show. And yeah, I remember this match being fantastic. Next, we've got Will Ospreay versus Fletcher from just an episode of AEW Dynamite on March 6th. This was 3 days after the Revolution match. Insane that Ospreay can have 2 ridiculously good matches 3 days apart. I also watched this one on vacation, so maybe I was just in a better frame of mind. I was just happier because I wasn't working. So I was enjoying watching these matches more. But no, I think Ospreay just had some fantastic matches this year. Next I had Jack Perry versus Shota Umino from New Japan Pro Wrestling at Windy City Riot on April 12th. This was Perry's first match in Chicago since the whole CM Punk thing last year. I'm sure that was last year now. And I was very, very curious about this match. I was expecting him to be booed vociferously by the Chicago crowd. And there were definitely a few people there who were booing him, but most people loved Jack Perry there. And if like a CM Punk chant started, most of the crowd shut it down instantly by booing it. And they absolutely loved Jack Perry there. And as a big Jack Perry fan, I loved seeing that. So I think that's why this match was on the list. Next we have, you might have heard of this guy, Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson from AEW Dynasty, April 21st. Don't remember the specifics of this match again, but 2 of the best wrestlers in the world, Ospreay and Danielson. You know, it was always going to be an instant classic, and I do think this is one of the highest rated matches on Cage Match right now for the year. Also from Dynasty, I had Young Bucks versus FTR. This must have been a really good match because I can't stand FTR anymore, and apparently this one made my list, so that's great. Next, we jump ahead to May, and I had Adam Copeland versus Malakai Black in the steel cage match at Double or Nothing. Love both of these wrestlers. I think it was a really good cage match. Obviously, that was the match that Edge, Adam Copeland, injured himself, like horribly broke his leg jumping off the cage, and that was the last time we've seen him. God, that was many, many months ago now. He's been out for a long time. But it was a really good match. Then we had another guy you might have heard of. It's Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland at AEW's Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Just realizing now how strange that is. That's literally 2 AEW guys on the big crossover show. There's no New Japan people involved in that match. Honestly, you match Ospreay up with like me, and he'd still have an amazing match. You put Ospreay with a great wrestler, he's gonna have a match of the year candidate, and we're definitely seeing that with this whole list. Next, I had one that's very significant to me. It was Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page from the July 10th episode of AEW Dynamite. Obviously, that is a cool matchup. It's extra special to me because I was there with my girlfriend at the show. We had aisle side seats, so we got to see them walk very close by us. And obviously Bryan Danielson retired from full-time competition not too long after this match. And going into it, I knew that he was going to be retiring very soon. Happened sooner than I was expecting. But I just knew I was watching something pretty special. Finally getting to see Danielson in person. Maybe this would have been my match of the year just for sentimental reasons. The next match I've got is Will Ospreay versus MJF from an episode of AEW Dynamite just a week later. Surprisingly, don't remember any specifics of that one. I'm guessing it was really good. But yeah, I don't really remember what was going on with that match. We get a little bit of a break from Ospreay now. We've got Konosuke Takeshita versus El Phantasmo from the August 7th episode of the G1 Climax. I definitely didn't watch every episode of the G1 or every day of the G1 this year, and even though I was pretty selective with the matches I watched, I think I just kind of went off Cage Match, like how people were rating the days and the matches. I think I did get a bit burnt out on New Japan, and that's why I haven't watched any since the G1. But this was the only G1 match to make it on my list, and yeah, I do remember this one being really, really good. Like, the rest of the G1 was solid, kind of what you'd expect, but this one was like above and beyond. Next, another sentimental reason to have this match on here was Drew Parker versus Brandon Kirk from GCW Homecoming at Night 1. Drew Parker is a deathmatch wrestler that I just really gravitated to for some reason. Just became such a fan of his. And I don't remember if it was earlier this year or late in 2023, He first announced that he was retiring from deathmatch wrestling, and then not too long after announced that he was retiring from wrestling entirely. And I was very sad about that because I really like watching his matches. I think he is not only a great deathmatch wrestler, he's also just a great wrestler. And so this match against Brandon Kirk was his big return. He returned to not only wrestling, but also deathmatch wrestling, and he had a violent, bloody match with Brandon Kirk. And I think watching it, it was pretty clear that both guys were just having a ton of fun out there, and it was just so good to see Drew Parker back, and that's why that match made it on this list. Now we're back to Will Ospreay, thank God. We've got Will Ospreay versus Pac from AEW All Out. I think Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world and has been for the last 2 or 3 years. I think Pac is like a sleeper second place best wrestler in the world. Pac kind of goes under the radar for a lot of people, but he is just incredible. He, I think, is a little underappreciated, but he is a ridiculously good wrestler, and his selling, his offense, his high flying, just his psychology, everything. I think he is so good. That was actually the first of 3 all-out matches I have on this list. My next one was Chris Statlander versus Willow Nightingale. This was a no DQ street fight, I think. It was really, really good. And then the next one I again do not remember, and this was only in September, was Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry. I think I sort of remember it was probably like Jack Perry's best match he's ever had. Obviously, he's with one of the best in the world, Bryan Danielson, so it makes sense he would have a great match. But I think, again, as a Jack Perry fan, I was just like, yes, he's had such a cool match in this one. Sorry, there were 4 matches from All Out I put on this list. The next one is the 4th one, which was Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. These two always put on such incredible matches. And yeah, obviously looking at this list, All Out was my pay-per-view of the year, it seems like. And then the last match I put on my list was Will Ospreay versus Ricochet versus Konosuke Takeshita in the 3-way at Wrestle Dream. And it's interesting, like looking at this list, there's not that many like standout moments for me. I think if I look back at my 2023 list, where my match of the year was Ospreay versus Omega in the Tokyo Dome, I still remember the top rope brainbuster on the turnbuckle. Like that moment still lives in my head. And as much as I'm sure I liked most of the matches on this list this year, there aren't any of those standout moments that still stick with me almost 2 years later. So yeah, again, I think there's a few reasons that I probably won't do this kind of list next year. And I probably won't even track all my favorite matches of 2025, because I didn't have a lot to say about most of these matches, unfortunately. Like, I'm sure they were great when I watched them on January 13th, but I just don't remember it, 11 months later. So yeah, I think fairly unlikely I'll do a list like this next year, but I will definitely aim to continue with my pay-per-view prediction videos. Maybe I'll do a couple of WWE ones. They will be on Netflix. Everything WWE will be on Netflix for me because I'm in Canada. So it'll be a lot easier for me to watch them, which will be nice. Maybe a Royal Rumble prediction? I don't know. I don't even read WWE recaps anymore. So I don't think I can actually do WWE predictions at all. But yeah, I think at the very least I will stick with my AEW pay-per-view predictions. But that might be about it. Maybe a New Japan one here and there. Maybe the Wrestle Dynasty one I might try and do, because that's at least got AEW people, so I know it. Obviously, if you've managed to make your own top 5 wrestling matches, let me know in the comments. That would be great. Let me know if there are any big matches that I missed on here. There was I think it was Speedball Mike Bailey versus Konosuke Takeshita on one of the Maple Leaf pro wrestling shows. It's meant to be really, really good. Haven't got around to watching it. There's a lot that I didn't get around to watching this year. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!